Jim Ross is my mentor. He got me my first big contract ever. I was making, just to be very honest, I was making $15,000 and a year with Crockett Promotions, and he got me six figures. Now, if you go from
Wow.
$15,000 to six figures in one day, it is like,
Life-changing.
yeah, it's life changing, and he's responsible for that, and that I'll never forget. And
Wow.
also, he also taught, Jim. You know how great a talker Jim is on the air. We all do, but just hang out with him and listen to him talk when he's rolling.
Yes.
He has such great advice on careers and how you should approach your business and how you should be a wrestling announcer. And he taught me a lot when he first arrived in 1987. And when I say Jim Ross is my mentor, fans may say, "Oh, he's bullshitting." No, it's true. He was. Now, yeah, I was announcing wrestling before I started working with Jim Ross, but I really don't think I really got it until I started working with JR.
Wow.
So that's what he means to my career, and that's why I was so happy to be standing with him on October 2nd in 2019, doing shows again on TNT. And I know his health has been bad. I know he's battled it, but we've had a lot of fun with him backstage at AEW, and hopefully we still can in the years to come. And we are praying for Jim, no doubt about it.
Jim Ross truly is the voice of wrestling, isn't he, John?
Oh, 100%. When Vince was doing the XFL, he had a bunch of announcers. He called them all together and he goes, "I want you to listen to some real announcers." And he had them listen to Jim Ross. That's how much he thought of JR. Man, he was an unbelievable announcer. Still is. But man, talk about a library of 30 to 40 years of just incredible calls, one after another. He made things interesting. He made you care about what you were watching. It's something that was just, some people have it, some people don't. JR's just had a gift from God to be able to call things and make them interesting and be able to tell stories. And, he certainly did so much for me in my career, and he's still a good friend, and I look forward to hopefully years and years of friendship going ahead.
When you were interested in trying to work with New Japan to expand their program globally, you called Jim Ross. And when Tony Khan was hoping to launch a challenger brand for WWE, he called Jim Ross. And when World of Sport wanted to make a big splash across the pond, they called Jim Ross. Jim Ross is the greatest announcer in the history of professional wrestling. And if you're listening to this podcast, you already know that. So on some weird level, Jeff, it almost feels like JR is kind of almost every wrestling fan my age. He's almost like our Uncle Jim. And the idea that we know he's going through this, man, it's just it's a punch to the gut, Jeff.
I was going to say life will give you a kick in the balls out of nowhere. And in a lot of ways, Connie, as we both know, that's what makes it life. We are, I don't want this to be too much of a downer because you know what, with treatments today and the way the medical and the holistic fields can attack things. But when you get news like this, it's like a, punch in the gut, kick in the balls. But man, you just nailed it. Cause I've had two different, you nailed two of them right there. The New Japan Wrestle Kingdom. What a great experience that was, and kind of running by the seat of our pants, and in a lot of ways, put old JR and got the opportunity, me and Scott D'Amore kind of got to put fight on the map, if you will, and that took off. And then several years later, that World of Sport, I'll never forget. I'll leave the names out of it, but when he was announced, next thing you know, JR got his jersey back, WWE. So, and the thing that I most appreciate, well, there's a lot of things about JR. Obviously, his enthusiasm and passion, but man, when you really know, and you know it better than I do, Conrad, because you've done the pods, but going back to day one, Bill Watts, the cowboy, as JR would say, how Jim came up in the business, refereeing, Um, I just think there's so much value in paying your dues. And if you really look around at every successful person in this industry, you can't really go into their success without talking about how'd they pay their dues. And the old JR did it. And man, he had a rough go working for the chairman off and on for several years, but man, he persevered. And yes, you've hit several of the highlights, but man, I wish him nothing but the best. Good old JR. The whole wrestling world's pulling for him. And I got a lot of optimism just because of the way medical fields treat things now, man. They can have fantastic success.
When I went to WWE and they gave me my contract, Jim Ross handed me my contract. We sat there and had a meeting with the lawyer, talked about all the particulars. I was Jim Ross. Signed my contract. My contract was signed by me, Jim Ross, one of the legal guys, and Linda McMahon signed it. And throughout the years, Jim Ross, when I was there, Jim Ross was a big supporter of mine. There was moments like when they sent me to Memphis, Jim would do the Ross Report on WWE.com. He would put little blurbs in there saying nice things about me. During Christmas, they sent me a Christmas card, Jim Ross is an awesome guy, good person, personable. I love that he's still doing this. I'm glad he went on to do what he's done with AEW. Still stay out there and still have a voice, be a beacon, for professional wrestling. He easily could have been a NFL play-by-play. I think he did do Atlanta Falcons radio for a time there, but Jim was a good guy. Jim's a passionate guy. I recently just binged all his books. He's got 3 books out there. One just came out last year. Went through that and binged all through that. And, what an amazing life. And a guy who's been the soundtrack for so many things.
JR, I have a long history going back to 1991, I think. And we've been through a lot together. Individually, we've been through a lot. And personally, I worked for Jim, respected the hell out of Jim, learned from Jim, actually, a lot about pre-production, frankly, because Jim was a stickler. Jim would spend a lot of time making sure that he thought through an entire format and made sure he did an inventory of every point that needed to be promoted within that show. From the WCW magazine to tickets on sale to next week's show to the next pay-per-view to sponsors and all that. And he would weave that stuff into his commentary in a way that was seamless because he worked his ass off pre-producing those shows. I learned about pre-producing shows from Jim Ross, watching him work. He didn't teach me anything. I had proximity. I got to watch him work. I got to work next to him and learned a shit ton. Thank you for that, JR. But we also had our moments. A lot of it is just bad communication and extraordinary pressure on both of us. But we worked through all that, and he's a buddy. And I will say this. He's ornery. He's brilliant. He's grouchy as fuck. But he's a good man, and he's tough as hell. And he'll get through this. He's tough. God bless you.